At some point, and I think you know the exact moment I am talking about, you stopped being kind to yourself. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, gradually. The way a light dims before it goes out. You started talking to yourself the way your worst critic would, replaying what you said wrong, calling yourself stupid for things you cannot change, narrating your own life like someone who never quite roots for you. And what is strange is, most people know they do this. They just do not know how much it is costing them. Because it turns out, the way you talk to yourself is not just a habit. It is a biological event happening inside your brain, right now, every day, that is actively shaping who you become. And the science behind what happens when you finally change it. That is what this video is about. Here is something most people do not realize. You are talking to yourself right now, constantly, non-stop. Every single waking moment. A study estimated that the average human is capable of talking to themselves at a rate equivalent to 4,000 words per minute, out loud. Think about that. The fastest human speaker on record does about 900 words per minute. Your inner voice is running at more than 4 times that speed. Psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan, one of the world's leading researchers on inner voice, calls this chatter. In his 2021 book, he describes it as the voice in your head that never stops commenting, judging, replaying, and predicting. And he says something that stopped me completely the first time I read it. He says this inner voice is not separate from you. It is not background noise. It is the primary way you experience your own life. So the question becomes, what is that voice actually saying to you? And more importantly, is it on your side? When your inner voice is running on self-criticism, and for a lot of people it runs on almost nothing else, something very specific happens neurologically. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between a real threat and a thought about a threat. When you tell yourself you are a failure, your nervous system begins to respond the same way it would if someone else said it to your face. Cortisol rises. Your threat detection system activates. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for clear thinking and good decisions, goes partially offline. A 2019 systematic review by Werner and colleagues found that chronic self-criticism is directly linked to social anxiety, depression, relationship difficulties, and long-term psychological distress. Not sometimes, consistently, across study after study. And the cruelest part of this? Most of us learned to talk to ourselves this way from somewhere. A parent who criticized before they praised. A classroom where being wrong was humiliating. An environment where kindness toward yourself felt like arrogance. The voice in your head did not come from nowhere. It learned its tone from the world around you before you were old enough to question it. In 2014, Ethan Kross and his colleagues at the University of Michigan published a study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. 585 participants. 7 separate experiments. What they wanted to know was this: does the language you use when you talk to yourself change how you actually feel? The answer was yes. Dramatically. They found that when people shifted from talking to themselves in the first person, using I, to talking to themselves using their own name or the word you, something remarkable happened. Emotional reactivity dropped, anxiety reduced, performance under stress improved significantly. In one experiment, people who used third-person self-talk before a high-stakes public speech were rated by objective observers as performing substantially better than those who talked to themselves in the first person. Think about what that means. Not therapy, not medication, not years of work, just changing one word in how you speak to yourself. Instead of, I am so anxious, I cannot do this, it becomes, you are nervous right now. That makes sense. You have done hard things before. Same situation, same person, completely different emotional outcome. 3 years later, in 2017, Kross and Jason Moser from Michigan State University took this further. They put people inside fMRI machines and EEG scanners and watched their brain activity in real time as they talked to themselves. First person versus third person. What they found was that third person self-talk reduced emotional reactivity in the brain within the first second of processing, 1 second. And it did this without requiring any extra mental effort. No strain, no willpower, just one word change. Moser said it best: referring to yourself in the third person leads you to think about yourself the way you think about others. And when you do that, you finally get the distance to breathe. So why does the inner critic even exist? Vygotsky figured it out back in 1962. We do not invent the voice in our head. We absorb it. If the voices around you growing up were critical and cold, your inner voice learned to speak the same way. Not because something is wrong with you, because you were listening. A 2023 review of 559 studies confirmed it. Self-talk tone is directly tied to your early emotional environment. The critic was never your enemy. It was a scared kid trying to keep you safe. It just never learned that you do not need protecting anymore. So what does this actually look like? Not affirmations, not fake positivity. The research does not support that, and neither do I. It looks like this. When something goes wrong, instead of "I am so stupid, I always do this," you try. That was hard. Of course you struggle. What do you need right now? When you are scared, instead of "stop being such a coward," you try. You are afraid because this matters to you. That is not weakness. That is proof you care. Think about the last time someone you loved came to you broken. You did not say "get over it." You sat with them. You saw them. That person deserved that from you, and so do you. In 2024 Behavioral Sciences Journal, people who practiced self-compassionate self-talk showed measurably better emotional regulation. Not over years, over weeks. And in 2025, scientific reports published the most comprehensive daily self-talk study ever done. 208 people, 12,000 individual surveys, 2 weeks of real life. The people who spoke to themselves with more compassion and distance had lower distress, not in a lab, in their actual lives. In traffic, in the shower, at 2 in the morning. The healing was not happening in a therapy room. It was happening in the space between a thought and the choice of what to say next. You have been in a conversation with yourself since the moment you became conscious. That conversation has shaped every relationship you ever had, every risk you took or did not take, every version of yourself you believed you could become. Most people go their entire lives without questioning the tone of that voice. They just assume it is telling the truth. But you do not have to. The brain is not fixed. The voice is not permanent, and the most powerful therapeutic relationship you will ever have is the one you finally build with yourself. If this hits something real, drop a comment, even just one word. Someone is reading it at 2 in the morning and they needed it. Subscribe to Psyche Strength. This is just the beginning.